everyone. My name is Felix Oyinlola. I want to welcome you to week one of CTH 901 Introduction to Personality Theories of the first semester 2026-2027. Thank you for listening to this. This is going to be an introduction for us, and it's going to be a bit of a robust introduction, upon which we'll be building subsequently on this as we continue this term. It's my pleasure being here to be part of your journey in this new academic year. Believing God that this semester will be a good one for all of us, and we'll enjoy ourselves as we share together. And this will be a remarkable session by the grace of God. Uh, Personality theories. Uh, from that topic of course subjects, it means there are different type of personalities. It's not just you know just one, and of course, different theories were propounded by scholars about their view, their perspective about personality and what it means to them. Let's start this introduction session with this big questions. Big question. What makes a person the same across time and situations? And what makes them change? Two things. What makes a person the same person across time and situations? And what makes them change? I'd like you to reflect on this question because it's very, very important as we talk about personality. I want to tell you that when it comes to personality theory, can be defined as a set of concepts, ideas, and evidence we use to explain consistent patterns of thinking. And when we are talking about thinking in psychology, it means cognition, thoughts, all right, feelings, emotions, all right, motivation, and behavior. Behind every behavior, there is a motivation, while also accounting for the development, the context, and adaptation. Please note these words, they are very, very, very important. We are not just only looking at the consistent pattern of thinking, feelings, motivation, and behavior. We are also accounting for development, context, and adaptation. All right, so that is what personality theory means. And therefore, personality, what does it mean? Let's look at that word on its own. Personality can be defined as, enduring patterns of inner experience and behavior, plus the dynamic processes that shape how people adapt to life demand. I want to take that again. Personality can be referred to as an enduring pattern of inner experience and behavior, plus the dynamic processes that shape how people adapt to life and demand. This is what McAdams and Pars said in their book. Fonda also noted this definition in their book, The Personality Puzzle, that he made in 1997. McAdams in 2001 did a review of the psychology of life story, which was published in the Review of General Psychology. and also himself and McAdam, they jointly wrote a book, with the involvement of PAS in 2006 about a new Big Five, which has to do with the fundamental principles for an integrative science of personality. If you want to look for this book, you can find them in American Psychologist book or journals that was produced many years ago. And that's where he referred to personality. Both of them refer to personality as an enduring patterns, which is of inner experiences and behavior, of course, with the involvement of dynamic processes that shape how their life, emerges and the demand life places on them. In this first week, our focus is that you should be able to divine from the text, a textbook, different books that I've recommended for this class to know how personality is divined, and for all of us to be able to differentiate between these few things that determines the personality of people, which is number one is traits, number two is states, number three is temperament, number four character, and number five is identity. All right, you must be able to define personality, in the light of those five. I must be able to distinguish between them. Number two, you must be able to explain what a theory does in personality science when it comes to descriptions, explanations, predictions, interventions, and you know relevances. You must be able to explain what theory does in that science. Number three, we must be able to compare the major historic and contemporary approaches. There are different approaches both in the time past and in the 21st century. All right, that is, those approaches formed the background of the theories we are going to be looking at. There are so many of those theories. We have traits, we have psychodynamics, we have humanistic, uh, socio-cognitive, we have biological or evolutionary, narrative or identity, and of course the last one there is cultural. All right, so we're going to be looking at some of those historical and contemporary approaches. And number four, you must be able to identify core evaluation criteria for personality theories. All right. There are some of those criteria. We're going to look into some of those criteria: the stability, coherence, scope, parsimony, usefulness, cultural validity, and all that. We're going to be checking on that. And number five, we are going to be looking into description of foundational research methods and key debates, that has to do with person situation, level of analysis, and measurements. We're going to be looking at that. So when it comes to theory in personality, what counts as a theory? A personality theory is not just a belief system, it is a structured explanation that describes pattern. All right, when we're talking about pattern, we are asking a question like, what is stable? All right, explanation that explain mechanism, that is the reason behind what happened. Explanation that predicts outcomes, what will happen next. Explanation that guides change, what help people grow or heal. So these are structured things we are going to be looking into. In modern personality, in modern personality science, theories often works, across levels of analysis, different levels of analysis. We look at dispositional traits, for example, Big Five personality. I don't know how many of you have used that before. We're talking about characteristics adaptation, which has to do with goals, values, coping styles. We are going to be looking at the level of life narratives, identity, meaning making, and coherence. We're going to be looking at that. Those are things that makes the theory in personality count. And when we talk about the core concepts and distinction, we are going to be looking at traits versus states. I've told you the other time when we talk about traits, relatively stable tendencies, which is conscientiousness, is an example of that. And when we talk about state, we're talking about today's anxiety, today, temporary conditions, what's happening right now. So, because trait predicts meaningful life outcome. But when you look at state, state fluctuates with context. And of course, scholar Roberts, Wood, and Caspi in their book, which they wrote many, many years ago in 2008, I think the new edition is out right now. They discuss the differences between traits and states. And you must be able to identify that. And not just traits and state alone. Another concept is the concept of temperament and character. This is very important. When we are talking about temperament, I don't know how many of you have been able to examine that before. We belong to different temperaments. You know, on the side, we're talking about sanguine, choleric, phlegmatic, melancholy. That's our temperament. Early appearing. Our biological rooted differences, the way we react to things, reactivity, self-regulation, and when we're talking about character, which are more shaped by learning, value, and moral development, culture, identity. Those are things that forms our character, right? But that's another core concept and distinction. Another thing we'll be looking at is structure versus process. Don't forget, the first one is trait versus state. The second one is temperament versus character. And the third one we'll be looking at is structure versus process. And when we talk about structure, y- you know, we are talking about what are the parts of personality. Example is traits again, motives, and self-concepts. Right? What are the parts of personality as the structure? And when we look at the process, we are talking about how does personality operates. How does personality operate? We are talking about the information processing, emotional regulation, reinforcement, defense, and meaning making again. All right. So, and the deep part of the core concept and distinction is the person situation debate. We're going to be looking at that. It's a classic to modern resolution. There was an early critique that behavior changes across situations. So that makes traits to look weak. And of course, in the contemporary view, there's consistency appears in patterns. All right. And across time, traits and situation both also matter in aggravated behavior. So we need to understand this. This is a very voluminous course that I'm not sure we will be able to cover a whole thing in one semester, but we try our best to see how to match things together so that we can move fast and we can retain as much as possible. The other aspect of it is the major approaches, which has to do with the map of the field. The major approaches, we're going to be looking at that. Traits, dispositions. We're going to look at focus, uh, key models, like Big Five. Like I've said, we're going to be looking at the strengths. We're going to be looking at the limitations, right? And like I've listed the other time, psychodynamics is another approach we're going to be looking at. We're going to be focused look at the focus on the conscious processes, internal conflicts, differences, early relationship. Of course, the strength, the depth of motivation and emotion, clinical richness. And of course, the limitation around that, some, constructs are very hard to test. And some of them varies by school. And we're going to be looking at the limitation, according to Freud and the contemporary perspective in the Western. Humanistic and existential, we're going to be looking at that also. We'll be focusing on the meaning, authenticity, self-actualization, and of course, growth that has the strength of value, agency, and lived experience. And of course, some of the limitations there are measurement and possibility challenges. According to Rogers in Maslow. I don't know how many of you remember Maslow's uh, theory there. So we're going to be looking into that. And another one under approaches there is socio-cognitive, like I've mentioned, which has to do specifically with learning. We're focusing on cognition. I've told you the other time we talked about cognition in psychology, we're talking about thoughts. Cognition is thoughts, right? It's part of the focus on the socio-cognitive learning. We're going to be talking about cognition, thoughts, expectancies, self-efficacy, observational learning, and person in context. Those are things we'll be talking about. And when we look at the strengths, mechanism, change processes, strong experimental base, and the limitations. All of them has limitations there, anyways, which has to do with sometimes they underplays deep affective and motivational layers. There's one of the scholars I listened to during my postgraduate diploma some years ago. That I did here at St. Paul's University here in Ottawa. It was a session with Bandura, when he talks more about this. I remember. And the other one is biological and evolutionary. When you hear evolutionary, the first thing that comes to your mind should be genetics, all right? We're talking about brain systems. We're talking about adaptation. We're talking about, the way evolution functions, evolutionary functions. And the strength of it is that it's, links personality to biology and development, right? So, and of course, it has a reduction. There's a risk of reductionalism if culture or meaning, ignored. And other things like that. So narrative identity is also part of it. And when we talk about narrative, the first thing that comes to mind is life story, making meaning, meaning making out of situation, coherence, redemption. We look at contamination scripts. And of course, the strength there, you capture the person as author, right? And part of the limitation is the measurement is complex and cultural variability to is high. All right, so we need to take note of that. And the last one under that is culture and contextual, which is another approach we're going to be looking at. This focuses on how our culture shapes, you know, our traits, repression, selfhood, and norms. These are things we'll be looking at under this. And the strength there is correct one size fits all assumption. You know, I don't know how many of you have had that before. And it has its limitation in balancing universal versus cultural specific. There's a conflict there. So we're going to be looking at this. We're going to be looking at this. And of course, the last another part there is how do we evaluate a personality theory? How do we evaluate personality theory? There are 7 ways to do that. Number one, we can evaluate personality theories by clarity and coherence. Number two, by the scope. Number three, testability or falsifiability. Uh, Number four, empirical support. Number five, parsimony, not overly complex for what it explains. Number six is applied usefulness, clinical, organizational, educational value. All right, these are the areas that's covered because some of us will be working with people when we finish supporting people. Some of us will be working in the organization that needed support, and of course, some will be working in school. So these are the areas this cover: apply usefulness, and of course, cultural validity works beyond one culture or explain differences. So these are 7 ways to evaluate personality theory. We also have methods and measurements. That is the toolbox. We're going to be introducing the main ways personality studies and their biases. All right. Number one, we have self-report inventories, which is efficient, but impression management. Number two, informant reports, which is predictive, most often, and limited access to inner state. We have number three, behavioral observation, all right, which is very rich and can be context bound also. We have number four, experience sampling, daily diaries. That's the state trait dynamics. So we can use that also as a method and measurement. Uh, we can use projective performance-based measure, which is debated and psychometry vary. The next one and the last one there is biological measures. For the sake of, genetics, talk about genetics, psychophysiology, neuroimaging. These are things we discuss under biological measure. Of course, the key concept there is reliability versus validity, which is trait level prediction, improves with aggregation over time. Right. These are things we are going to be looking into in this uh, class. This is just an introduction, it's a broad introduction, like I told you at the beginning. And by the time we meet in class, we'll see how far have you been able to read the resources provided in our syllabus. Please take time to read your syllabus. It contains a lot of information that can help us go along with what we are doing today. So that by the time we are rounding off this semester, you have broad and holistic understanding of what personality theories uh, is all about, and you'll be better equipped to support those whom you are working with. So it's nice talking to you today, brethren. Please take time to watch this video over and over so that you can compare what you've heard me saying today with what you have in your syllabus, and that will help you to be able to assimilate and comprehend as much as possible what we're talking about under CTH 901, which is Introduction to Personality Theories. It's my pleasure being here with you today. So, looking forward to our first meeting the last Saturday of this month, where we'll be able to review what we have been doing since the beginning of this semester as we move forward. Thank you for watching. If you have any question, please feel free to send an email to me or send a message to me privately on our platform. You can reach out to me if you check your portal. You have a space where you can send message to me or email, and I will provide answers to that as fast as possible to the best of my knowledge. Okay. Thank you everyone for watching this video. Until next time when I come across your way again, so be blessed. Bye.